I guided my daughter through the heavy oak doors of the Burlington Mountain Lodge for our annual family gathering. My name is Annette, a single mother doing my absolute best to shield my child from a deeply judgmental world. The spacious room was filled with fabricated warmth as relatives clinked their expensive wine glasses together in celebration. That fake atmosphere vanished completely the exact second the two of us stepped into the crowded main hall. My parents stood near the corner speaking in hushed tones that were intentionally amplified just enough to shatter a vulnerable teenager. They looked directly at us before muttering, "Who let that fatherless girl come here? This isn't her place." My 13-year-old daughter froze instantly where she stood as her face flushed deeply with profound humiliation. She turned her body away immediately with the desperate urge to escape a place where she clearly did not belong. I gripped her trembling hand firmly while forcing down the intense rage boiling inside my chest to maintain absolute clarity. I pulled her closely to my side to shield her from their stares before whispering, "Stay calm. I'll handle this." I made a silent vow right then to dismantle their entire facade by exposing their financial crimes to the world. I am genuinely grateful that you are here listening to my journey of seeking justice against my own family. If this story resonates with you, please show your support by liking this video while subscribing to my channel. I would love to build a strong community, so please comment below, letting me know which city you are watching from. I share new dramatic life stories every single day, so your daily engagement truly means the absolute world to me. The long drive home through the heavily falling snow that night was consumed by an incredibly heavy silence broken only by my daughter's suppressed sniffles in the passenger seat. Delilah stared blankly out the frosted passenger window before asking a devastating question that caused my chest to physically tighten in agony. "Mom, why do they hate me so much?" Hearing her softly trembling voice instantly awakened a fierce protective instinct deep within my core as a mother. I reached over to gently rub her shoulder while formulating a response that would somehow shield her from their toxicity. "They don't hate you, sweetie. They are just empty people looking for something to take." That statement carried far more truth than my daughter could possibly comprehend at her young age, because she did not understand the dark reality of our twisted family dynamic. After tucking an exhausted Delilah safely into her warm bed, I sat completely alone in the dim kitchen trying to logically process the chaotic evening's events. I mentally connected my parents' continuous contemptuous attitude with the stark reality of their current financial nightmare. My parents constantly projected a ridiculously wealthy image to their corporate business partners while actually drowning in massive debt behind closed doors. I knew for a fact they were facing immense pressure from the Internal Revenue Service regarding years of unpaid taxes while simultaneously suffering from severe liquidity problems across multiple business ventures. Their desperate need for immediate cash explained their sudden, unprovoked hostility toward a child who possessed something they desperately desired to steal. The true motive behind their calculated cruelty became glaringly obvious when I recalled a highly unusual phone call I received exactly 3 weeks prior from my sister Wanda. During that extremely uncomfortable conversation, Wanda asked several highly targeted questions regarding the financial assets left behind by my late husband. She initially disguised her interrogation as casual sisterly concern regarding my ability to handle complex financial matters alone as a single mother. However, her persistent inquiries quickly escalated into an aggressive probe into the specific legal structure of my daughter's substantial inheritance. Wanda explicitly demanded to know whether Delilah was designated as the sole beneficiary of the estate, or if other individuals held claims. She then pressed much further by asking if the established trust fund contained specific provisions allowing legal withdrawals by a primary guardian before the child reached 18 years of age. I had foolishly brushed off her invasive interrogation at the time by assuming she was simply being her usual nosy self. Looking back with a completely clear mind, those highly specific legal questions proved my own family was actively researching vulnerabilities within the trust documents. They were clearly actively searching for a legal loophole to drain the financial accounts without triggering any immediate alarms. The horrifying realization that my own flesh and blood viewed my innocent child merely as financial prey made me physically sick to my stomach. I desperately needed an objective perspective immediately before my overwhelming anger completely clouded my logical judgment. I grabbed my cell phone from the granite counter to immediately call my best friend Carmen. I detailed the entire humiliating situation involving the Mountain Lodge incident combined with those highly suspicious financial inquiries. Carmen listened patiently without interrupting my story before helping me channel my blinding rage into a highly calculated legal strategy. We spent the entire next hour carefully planning my exact next steps to uncover the full extent of their fraudulent scheme. I decided right then to conduct a thorough investigation into the trust fund accounts first thing the very next morning to secure our future against their greed. At exactly 8 o'clock on Monday morning, I arrived at the downtown estate management office to personally verify the security status of every single document. I bypassed the receptionist's desk to meet directly with my lawyer Dominic. I immediately instructed him to pull up the complete access history log regarding my late husband's financial accounts. I specifically requested a thorough review of any recently submitted legal orders, requesting modifications to the primary guardianship status of the trust fund. Dominic sensed the intense urgency in my voice, while quickly typing his administrative credentials into the highly secure database. He understood perfectly well that we were dealing with a potential threat against a vulnerable child's inheritance. We both stared intently at the glowing monitor as Dominic Cross referenced the internal system records against his physical files. His expression shifted from professional curiosity to genuine alarm upon discovering a newly uploaded document pending immediate approval. Someone had just submitted a comprehensive power of attorney designating external control over the primary trust accounts. Dominic magnified the electronic document on his screen to carefully examine the digital signature authorizing the sweeping financial changes. He immediately pointed out that the digital signature attached to the bottom of the official form completely failed to match the highly secure biometric sample stored safely within my personal archive. The forgery was sophisticated enough to bypass basic automated security filters, but failed under direct expert scrutiny. I demanded to know exactly where the fraudulent submission originated before the perpetrators managed to steal my daughter's future. Dominic initiated a deep metadata verification process to track the electronic footprint left behind by the responsible party. The complex routing information clearly indicated the malicious request was deliberately forwarded through an encrypted intermediary email address to mask the sender's true identity. The perpetrator unfortunately made a critical error by neglecting to scrub the original IP address from the embedded file data. The undeniable digital trail pointed straight back to the primary corporate server operating inside the headquarters owned by my father. Dominic turned away from his computer monitor to look directly into my eyes with an incredibly serious expression. "Annette, if this goes through, they can execute a legal withdrawal. Delilah will lose her entire trust fund." The sheer reality of their malicious intent washed over me like freezing water. They were not merely inquiring about her money, but actively executing a coordinated legal theft designed to entirely bypass my parental authority. The realization that my own flesh was actively trying to bankrupt my grieving child made my blood run completely cold. I instinctively reached for my cell phone to contact the authorities right then to report the felony. Dominic gently placed his hand over mine to prevent me from making a premature emergency call that could ruin our case. "It came from your father's corporate network, but Patrick wouldn't do the paperwork himself." Dominic logically explained that calling the police immediately would allow my father to easily claim a massive corporate computer glitch. Patrick possessed the financial resources to hire expensive attorneys to blame an unnamed rogue employee for the unauthorized submission. We desperately needed irrefutable proof tying a specific family member directly to the fraudulent paperwork before involving federal law enforcement. We formulated a strategic plan requiring me to extract a direct verbal confirmation from the exact person who actually filed the counterfeit document. I knew instantly that Wanda was the only relative arrogant enough to execute the administrative side of this massive financial crime. I left the office absolutely determined to set an inescapable trap that would legally destroy their malicious operation once and for all. On Wednesday afternoon, I intentionally invited Wanda to an isolated suburban coffee shop while carrying a concealed recording device securely activated inside my leather purse. I spent several minutes sitting alone in my parked vehicle verifying the microphone function before walking through the glass doors to meet her. I deliberately slumped into the wooden booth across from her, while projecting the pathetic image of a completely exhausted widow severely overwhelmed by relentless financial paperwork. I fundamentally needed her to view me as entirely helpless to effectively lower her defensive barriers during our conversation. I slowly stirred my black coffee before intentionally bringing up the massive tax issues currently plaguing Patrick and Sylvia. I mentioned hearing terrible rumors regarding their severe financial troubles with the Internal Revenue Service, just to carefully gauge her immediate reaction to the sensitive topic. Wanda did not immediately burst into a villainous monologue detailing her entire fraudulent scheme right there in the cafe. She instead leaned forward over the small table while employing her usual manipulative sophistry to logically justify her ongoing malicious actions. She firmly insisted she was simply executing necessary administrative measures to salvage the dying honor of our family legacy from total financial ruin. She attempted to reframe her blatant theft as a noble sacrifice required to protect the corporate reputation they had spent decades building. Mom and Dad are in serious trouble with the IRS. I'm just helping them get back what rightfully belongs to the family. I maintained a perfectly confused expression to prevent her from sensing any underlying suspicion regarding my true investigative intentions. I desperately needed to skillfully guide the flowing conversation toward the specific legal documentation Dominic recently discovered on the secure financial server. I took a deep breath before asking a highly direct question regarding the exact current status of the guardianship transfer documents. I had to force her to explicitly confirm the fraudulent legal action she executed without her realizing she was officially confessing to a federal crime on tape. I purposely injected a tone of naive panic into my voice to gently push her toward answering my specific legal inquiry. So, the power of attorney paperwork. It's already been filed. Right. Wanda smiled with absolute arrogant satisfaction as she finally fell completely into my carefully laid legal trap. She casually brushed off the extreme severity of the legal situation while taking a slow sip of her expensive beverage. Yes, it's just a temporary transfer of management. Don't worry about the complex terms. She genuinely believed her own ridiculous lies while explicitly assuming I was far too intellectually incompetent to comprehend complex financial terminology. Wanda confidently thought she could execute this massive corporate theft simply because she viewed me as a clueless single mother completely incapable of protecting her own child from predators. She severely underestimated my intelligence while firmly believing her illegal administrative actions would remain entirely undiscovered by the bank authorities. She assumed I would never bother checking the estate management portals or verifying the digital signatures attached to the official filings. She had absolutely no idea the digital recorder hidden safely at the bottom of my purse had perfectly captured her explicit verbal confession to corporate document forgery. I had successfully obtained the exact verbal confirmation Dominic legally required to proceed with our devastating legal strike against their fraudulent operation. There was absolutely no reason to prolong this sickening interaction a single second longer than necessary to secure the evidence. I immediately grabbed my heavy purse and abruptly stood up from the booth, while feigning a sudden severe migraine to facilitate my swift exit. I offered a weak apology regarding my declining health before turning my back on her to leave the premises. I left Wanda sitting completely alone in the coffee shop, while I walked straight to my vehicle to securely deliver the unedited audio file directly to my lawyer. On Saturday evening, the mountain lodge glittered with crystal lights to welcome the business elite attending my parents' anniversary banquet. I walked confidently through the ornate main entrance completely alone, after securing a trusted professional sitter to watch Delilah safely at our house. There was absolutely no need for me to sneak through back doors or attempt to bypass the hired security personnel to enter the exclusive corporate event. Dominic had brilliantly utilized the legal access rights of a minor corporate shareholder embedded within my father's company to secure our official invitations several days in advance. My presence inside the venue was entirely legitimate under their established corporate bylaws, completely shielding me from any accusations of trespassing. The event coordinators simply checked my name off their master clipboard without batting an eye or alerting my family to my sudden arrival. Carmen also attended the lavish gathering under the highly convincing guise of an aggressively successful commercial real estate investor actively seeking lucrative new business opportunities. She wore a tailored designer suit while confidently bypassing the crowded reception area to head directly toward the open bar section. Wanda was already standing there holding a drink while attempting to network with various affluent guests. Carmen expertly positioned herself next to my sister before initiating a highly specialized conversation, meticulously designed to capture Wanda's undivided attention. "I heard your firm is looking to liquidate some commercial assets, Wanda. We should talk numbers." "Absolutely. We have a very solid portfolio right now." Wanda immediately swallowed the bait by eagerly launching into a complex discussion regarding rapid asset liquidation strategies to impress the newcomer. She desperately needed to secure immediate capital for the failing family business, while completely failing to recognize the strategic trap closing tightly around her. While Wanda remained entirely engrossed in proving her fabricated financial expertise to Carmen, I utilized the perfect distraction to calmly navigate my way through the dense sea of wealthy guests. Nobody paid any attention to a quiet family member moving purposely toward the back of the massive banquet room. I casually walked straight toward the primary audiovisual control table situated discreetly behind a velvet rope near the rear exit of the grand hall. The hired event organizers busily running the banquet assumed I was simply another demanding relative, requesting a last-minute change to the evening presentation schedule. I completely bypassed the outdated method of fumbling with physical USB drives that could easily malfunction or draw unnecessary suspicion from the technical staff. I leaned over the dark tablecloth to type a specific administrative passcode directly into the primary event management laptop. I quickly navigated through the complex operating system to activate a hidden secure directory containing the devastating financial evidence. Dominic had successfully uploaded all the forged legal documents to the local network server earlier that same afternoon. The entire projection system was now perfectly primed to broadcast the undeniable truth across the massive screens at the touch of a single remote button. I seamlessly stepped away from the technical station to blend back into the crowd before anyone could question my brief interaction with the expensive equipment. I navigated back toward my assigned seating in the middle of the room just as the ambient music began to fade out for the evening program. I took my seat precisely at the exact moment Patrick stood up from the decorated head table to address the massive crowd of corporate investors. He confidently tapped his silver spoon against his expensive crystal champagne glass to instantly command the absolute attention of the entire room. He smiled hypocritically at his wealthy partners while requesting everyone's complete silence to begin his touching speech about the enduring importance of family bonds. He stood there soaking in the applause with absolutely no idea he was about to deliver his final public address before his entire fraudulent empire collapsed permanently. The exact moment the polite applause for his speech faded, I walked directly to the podium to grab the spare microphone resting on the wooden stand. I stood firmly beside my completely stunned father while staring directly out into the massive sea of wealthy investors to execute my final calculated move. I calmly interrupted Patrick before he could utter another hypocritical word about family values to inform the entire room regarding a very special presentation I prepared. I announced clearly through the amplification system that I brought a highly vivid demonstration showcasing exactly how this particular family actually manages their internal cash flow during times of severe financial crisis. I pressed the small trigger button concealed inside my palm to instantly activate the massive projection screen dominating the wall directly behind the main stage. The blinding white light illuminated the dark room to display the highly sensitive financial documents Dominic prepared earlier that afternoon. There were absolutely no emotional recordings of their petty insults replayed for the crowd to hear, because this was strictly a calculated corporate execution. The giant screen explicitly displayed crisp, high-definition images of the fraudulent power of attorney, featuring the blatantly forged digital signature next to my official legal signature for direct comparison. That undeniable forgery was displayed right alongside the undeniable IP address evidence, tracing the illegal document submission straight back to the primary company servers Patrick owned. The visual shock provided by the screen was immediately followed by the crystal-clear audio recording of Wanda echoing loudly through the state-of-the-art surround sound speakers. Her arrogant voice filled the dead-silent banquet hall as she explicitly admitted the severe tax crisis currently suffocating my parents under mountains of hidden debt. Every single wealthy investor listened in absolute horror as Wanda casually confessed to executing a temporary transfer regarding the massive trust fund belonging exclusively to my 13-year-old daughter. Her recorded admission of federal wire fraud alongside illegal estate manipulation echoed flawlessly across the room without any static to obscure her undeniable criminal guilt. The massive banquet hall instantly exploded into a state of unprecedented chaos as the severe reality of these corporate crimes fully registered with the elite attendees. Dozens of highly influential guests immediately pulled their expensive smartphones from their tailored pockets to record the unfolding legal disaster happening right before their widening eyes. Several major corporate partners alongside the primary financial backers did not even hesitate for a single second before abruptly standing up from their decorated dinner tables. They hastily gathered their personal coats to swiftly evacuate the toxic environment before their own lucrative business reputations could be permanently tarnished by any association with my family. Wanda stood completely frozen in absolute terror over by the open bar while watching her entire professional life shatter into a million unrecoverable pieces. The expensive crystal wine glass slipped right through her trembling fingers to shatter violently against the polished hardwood floor without her even noticing the massive mess at her feet. Patrick lost all the color in his face while turning a sickly shade of pale as his carefully constructed aristocratic facade crumbled into absolute dust before the city elite. He lunged aggressively toward my position on the wooden stage in a state of total desperate panic, while waving his arms frantically to physically rip the cables from the computer. What is the meaning of this turn? That screen off right now. I stepped back safely out of his physical reach, while looking at the sweating man with absolutely zero remaining sympathy or any lingering familial affection. This is your real portfolio, Patrick. Corporate fraud and identity theft against a 13-year-old. Only seconds after the audio system was abruptly disconnected, the established order of the entire upper-class banquet hall completely collapsed. Patrick stood near the edge of the wooden stage screaming hysterically, while aggressively pointing his visibly shaking finger directly at my face. He frantically threatened to entirely ruin my life by filing massive defamation lawsuits alongside severe corporate sabotage charges against me. He blamed me entirely for the catastrophic situation, while desperately trying to salvage his rapidly disintegrating reputation in front of his fleeing corporate investors. He repeatedly shouted that I was a completely ungrateful daughter, deliberately fabricating complex digital lies to steal his hard-earned wealth. "I will sue you for every penny you have. You're destroying this family." My mother immediately resorted to her usual theatrical manipulation tactics upon realizing the extreme severity of their current legal predicament. Sylvia dramatically clutched her chest while staggering backward awkwardly before collapsing violently onto the plush red carpet to fake a sudden medical emergency. She desperately hoped to manufacture immediate sympathy from the wealthy attendees by pretending to experience a severe heart attack right in the middle of the crowded venue. She gasped loudly for air while reaching a trembling hand out toward the retreating business partners, hoping someone would urgently call an ambulance. However, not a single guest stepped forward to offer any medical assistance as they simply stared down at her pathetic performance with absolute disgust. The elite attendees possessed enough basic intelligence to easily recognize a pathetic diversion tactic designed to avoid facing imminent federal consequences. The overwhelming chaos echoing throughout the massive room was instantly quelled when Dominic calmly stepped forward from the very last row of assigned seating. My trusted lawyer did not approach the main stage alone, because 3 federal financial investigators had been secretly planted within the venue long before the evening began. The plainclothes officers moved swiftly through the parting crowd with absolute professional precision to secure the primary exits while confidently approaching my screaming father. Wanda attempted to slowly back away toward the kitchen doors upon spotting the advancing federal agents, but a female officer swiftly intercepted her escape route. They wore serious expressions while completely ignoring Sylvia whining on the floor to focus their entire attention on the primary suspects. The lead investigator stepped firmly onto the stage while raising his official gold badge high into the air to establish immediate absolute authority over the chaotic environment. He sternly commanded everyone to step back immediately before loudly reading the emergency arrest warrants issued specifically for both Patrick, along with Wanda. "Federal agents, Patrick and Wanda, you are under arrest for wire fraud and document forgery. Hands behind your back." I stood perfectly still with my arms tightly crossed across my chest while watching the incredibly cold steel handcuffs snap securely onto the wrists of my own blood relatives. Patrick continuously threatened the arresting officers with severe legal repercussions regarding their careers, but the highly trained agents simply ignored his ridiculous wealthy entitlement. Wanda sobbed uncontrollably while attempting to hide her tear-stained face from the flashing smartphone cameras, capturing her ultimate downfall for the local news outlets. Patrick completely lost his arrogant posture as the federal officers forcefully secured his arms behind his tailored suit jacket to prevent any further physical resistance. The heavy metallic clicks of the securing restraints echoed loudly through the silent room as a definitive conclusion to their massive corporate theft operation. I watched with absolute emotional detachment as law enforcement escorted the completely humiliated criminals straight out the main entrance toward the waiting armored transport vehicles. The flashing police lights illuminating the snowy mountain lodge exterior signaled the definitive end of their psychological abuse toward my innocent child. The remaining wealthy guests watched the stunning procession with glaring contempt as the fabricated legacy of my corrupt family was permanently erased from the corporate world. As the creator of this channel, we proudly present this story for educational purposes regarding personal boundaries. Our primary goal is demonstrating exactly how individuals can effectively resolve severe family crises by utilizing absolute logic alongside the established legal system. Annette completely protected her vulnerable daughter by permanently relocating to sunny California while enforcing a strict legal cutoff. Patrick, alongside Wanda, received severe federal prison sentences directly reflecting their incredibly arrogant corporate criminal choices. Sylvia ultimately faced absolute total bankruptcy when relentless tax authorities aggressively seized her remaining physical assets. Please carefully consider the following deeply profound lessons derived directly from this massive familial betrayal. Sharing genetic material does not automatically grant any person the fundamental right to exploit your financial stability or verbally abuse your innocent children. You must vigorously defend your personal boundaries against anyone viewing you merely as a convenient monetary tool. Achieving absolute financial independence combined with the courage to gather undeniable legal evidence provides the ultimate protective shield for vulnerable mothers facing coordinated psychological manipulation. Relying strictly upon the established legal system offers genuine protection whenever basic logical reasoning completely fails. There are incredibly toxic individuals you absolutely must leave permanently behind to ensure your own survival. Completely cutting off those rotting roots remains the only viable method to ensure your own tree continues growing toward the brightest possible sunlight. We sincerely appreciate every single viewer who patiently stayed to listen to the final moments of this dramatic journey. Your continuous daily engagement truly means absolutely everything to our rapidly growing digital storytelling community. How would you handle a situation where your own relatives plotted such a devastating financial crime against your child? Please take a moment to share your honest perspectives directly inside the comments section below.